This is part one of The Reader. After much time and work, insecurity, and uncertainty, Ellery Shore had finally begun to attain some success with her career as a freelance copy editor and reading aide. Her website encouraged people of all ages to partake of her gifts as a linguistics major and a lover of literature. She held a deep passion for the tantalizing rhythm of words authors strung together in their beautifully fluid telling of stories. Ever since she was a young girl, Ellery loved books, spending countless hours alone poring over the pages and escaping into the wonderful landscapes of her and the author's imagination. Adding to the equation that bolstered her reader-for-hire offerings was the fact that she possessed a pleasantly mature, feminine voice that imbued her reading with a kind of verbal honey. To date, Ellery's growing client pool of people requiring a reader had been predominantly that of parents interested in getting their children into better schools by hoping to push their offspring towards an appreciation for the written word. Ellery often attempted to curb parents' ambitions, explaining that any progress came down to an individual's genuine interest in books, of which, unfortunately, they would have to arrive at on their own. Over the past months, Ellery had been receiving calls from people who subsequently hired her to read to their aging and ailing, often bedridden parents. She enjoyed the time spent in various homes and care facilities, sitting alongside a bedwearer, often prone and somewhat despondent, rested an elderly man or woman who looked out at her from life-withered faces as they listened to her eloquent voice carefully unravel the stories. Some drifted off to sleep, others fell into catatonic states. Most, however, defied their physical deteriorations with a sparkling lucidity in their eyes as they listened, enraptured, like an infant marveling at all around it. Ellery would sit, turning the pages, reading, her soft voice respectfully cradling each and every word, transforming them into an oral elixir that lingered in the air like a tantalizing morning haze. One day, Ellery received an inquiry from an older man desiring to hire a reader. She traded 2 emails and then a phone call with the prospective client. The man at the other end of the line introduced himself. His voice, though aged, had a youthful resonance that left Ellery believing he was most likely inquiring about her services for one of his parents. Agreements arrived at and address exchanged. A date was set for a formal face-to-face introduction. Ellery penciled it into her calendar for the following Monday. The day of the meeting with the prospective new client, Ellery paid special attention to her appearance in order to make the best impression. Not that she wasn't always immaculate and well-groomed. She chose a somewhat conservative dress and modest heels. After a final look at herself in the mirror, she then headed off to catch the B train to the south side of town. Experienced in the routine of meeting new clients, Ellery wasn't the least bit nervous, listening to the shriek and scrape of the subway train's wheels against the iron rails as it raced through the darkened underground. Ellery always used any free time to read, as she was doing now, her second time through Cormac McCarthy's All the Pretty Horses. Books had always been a pleasant escape for her, a place to while away the hours, escaping into fantasies and other places. They were her friends, the various fictional characters often holding more realism and truisms than those of actual flesh and blood. The books had sheltered her broken heart on several occasions, as they were presently, her last relationship having suffered the calamities that so often prey upon love. A confusing squabble, a heated exchange, and poof. Another man she had dared to love had vanished, leaving behind no physical proof that he had ever existed. Like a ghost known only to her, with the once lovely memories fading into sad obscurity. The tiresome routines of romance brought a beleaguered and sour reality that the books never plagued her with. For the time being, Ellery was happy to be unattached, untethered to a man, finding her own sensual escapes in the imagined stories of others, with frequent retreat into self-satisfaction so many lovelorn people resort to. After 20 minutes on the subway and 1 train change, Ellery emerged from the underground into the warmth of the day, got her bearings, and headed off into the tangle of residential streets. A few minutes later, she arrived at an elegant 3-story red brick home on a tree-lined avenue that looked to have been built at the front end of the 20th century. A manicured lawn bordered a cement pathway that led to the porch. Ascending the steps, Ellery felt the palpable air of history that hung about the home. She then stepped into the shade of the porch and rang the doorbell, listening to the cascade of metal bell sounds resonate the house on the other side of the ornate front door. A moment later, the door was opened by an older man dressed in beige khakis and a blue dress shirt, the sleeves rolled up to the elbows. His hair was short and full, brilliantly gray, combed straight back. He looked to be in his mid-70s, but it was hard to tell. He stood eye to eye in height to Ellery, and despite a slight bend of years, had relatively good posture and a slim physique. A pleasant, friendly smile accentuated his handsome, sun-weathered, and deeply lined face. "Miss Shore?" he inquired, his voice laced with an appealing aspect of aged masculinity. Ellery simply responded, "Yes." "Pleasure," extending his hand to shake hers. She took note of the Rolex watch adorning his right arm. A lefty, she thought to herself. He held his gaze of her for a moment, pleasantly surprised with her attractive appearance. "Come in." Ellery found herself being led through the spacious old home, past the grand staircase that circled up to the second and then the third floors, a massive wood banister curving with it. The home was tastefully decorated and held what appeared to be a good number of rare antiques. The only sound aside from their footsteps against the hardwood floor was that of a large, ornate grandfather clock chiming out the exact hour of her agreed-upon arrival. "You're punctual," the man offered as he led her down the hall. "I like that." A moment later, Ellery was sitting across from the man in a small study, the walls tiered with cherry-wood shelves that held hundreds of books, many of them first editions. A massive mahogany desk dominated the room. Heavy drapes were open to reveal a large window, the view of the backyard softened through sheer curtains. An oversized globe was illumined from within. There was a well-worn leather reading chair paired with a brass reading lamp and small table, just large enough to hold a good-sized novel and a brandy. Ellery sat on the leather couch opposite, hands clasped together demurely in her lap, fingers fondling the thin straps of her purse. She assumed this was the initial interview and that she would then be led upstairs to be introduced to an ailing father or mother in a large poster bed, where she would draw a comfortable chair alongside and set to read in a book to a person who may or may not even know she was there. "Miss Shore," the man spoke, "I did due diligence. Your resume is impressive and your references impeccable. If we decide to enter into an arrangement, I would like to secure your services 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. 2 hours per day, preferably midday. And for that, I will pay you the stated rate on your website, which I believe is $20 per hour. I would have to charge for travel time, given the distance," Ellery countered, "so that would add perhaps another hour per trip." "Not a problem." "Well, what can I answer for you or tell you about myself?" Ellery said, breaking the ice toward the interview. "There's nothing I need to know. You simply need to read." "To whom will I be reading?" Ellery asked. "Me," the man came back. "Oh, I thought perhaps a family member." "I've no family. It is only me now," he said, placing his elbow on the arm of the chair and settling his chin onto his knuckles, studying her intensely. "Oh, all right," Ellery responded, adjusting her preconceptions. After a moment of quiet deliberation, the man took from his desk a leather-bound volume of White Jacket by Herman Melville. He handed her the novel, which she handled with care, seeing it to be quite old. When she opened it, the lovely smell of aged paper wafted up into her nostrils. "One thing you need to know, before we go any further," the man said as he studied her. "I would like you to be completely naked when you read to me." Ellery couldn't hide her surprise. She sat, holding the novel in her hands, digesting what the man, a virtual stranger, had just said. "If that offends you or makes you uncomfortable in any way, I understand. I will gladly pay you your full rate for the day, and we will say goodbye." He watched her for a moment, waiting for a response. Ellery's eyes combed the room. She was uneasy, looking for something to fix on. "I've made you uncomfortable," the man volunteered. Her initial thought was to politely thank him and bid him farewell then and there, then make for the front door and escape into the sunlight and be gone from the house that smelled of another era. but his soft voice and sincere and polite disposition put her at ease. He made no move to explain himself, no attempt to excuse his request. He simply sat there, studying her with the wisdom of someone who has lived a long time. As she sat there, mulling it over, the idea took a vague hold. "Well," Ellery managed, fingers now kneading the strap of her purse, "that's certainly a first for me, or rather would be a first for me." "Have you a boyfriend?" the man asked. The question elicited a flurry of images of the man Ellery believed to be the one who had subsequently vanished. "No," she answered, with a delicate and somewhat sentimental dismay. Her answer seemed to exonerate them both from any concerns of encroachment or disloyalty on an existing relationship with regard to his request. "I'm not asking for sex or any type of copulation," the man offered. "I just would like for you to be nude when you read to me." Ellery sat, quietly assembling the elements before her. This man, of a certain age that certainly had seen a rich string of life experiences and no doubt many dalliances with women, still carrying a handsomeness and vitality, yet perhaps no longer capable or interested in chasing after the often difficult ritual of finding a mate, was now perhaps content, and obviously quite able in terms of resources, to explore his fetish on his own unapologetic terms. Ellery thought of her own escape into books that so gratified her wants, sans the troubles of relationships, and surmised that she had merely met another bewildered soul who had found similar satisfaction in the uncomplicated and physically unhurtful realms of the written word. The man's provocative request was certainly softened by his cultured demeanor and social status. A man on the street in vulgar approach with the same request would warrant a slap to the face. But sitting there, eyes locked firmly, knowing that the future of their liaison rested fully with her, his demeanor took on a kind of attractive vulnerability. He had no doubt been here before, proffering this same arrangement to other young women, most likely suffering being scolded and rebuffed, as well, perhaps, enjoying the indulgences and fancies of adventurous young girls willing to partake. She wondered about his history. Was this a new fetish? Perhaps emerging with age and the onset of incapacity that so often arises with males against the passing of years. The man was experienced enough to sense Ellery's tension easing, her shoulders relaxing as her body settled back into the couch. He chose this moment to launch into a very succinct explanation as to how he would like to be read to. For the next 5 minutes, Ellery listened as the man explained she was to be naked, her hair up with just the right amount of loose strands framing her face. She was to wear reading glasses. If she didn't need them or have them, he would procure a pair for her. When she informed him that she wore glasses to read, he was pleased and asked to see them. Ellery withdrew the glass case from her purse and showed them to him. They were gold, thin-wire rims with small oval lenses. He nodded approvingly. With each reveal of his concise desires, Ellery was getting more comfortable with the idea. As with sex, the more one gets comfortable with a partner, the more acceptable even the most outrageous of suggestions. Given that this was their first meeting and she could not have known, he informed her that on subsequent visits she was to wear tall black heels. He was quite specific about the color and style. Other than the glasses and heels, she was to be completely naked, save for the book, held just so. The only other item she would be allowed to wear, which he seemed to accept upon sight of it, was the dainty gold watch with its petite black strap that adorned her left wrist. At the end of his instructions, the man looked at her, his face in earnest, tacitly asking if she were interested. The man once again assured her that he had no interest in intercourse or any of the wonderful copulations that exist between a man and a woman. He simply wanted to look at her naked body as she read to him. Ellery was mulling over the request, her tongue between her teeth in uncertain but intrigued hesitation. The proposition was free of any conflicts of conscience, and Ellery, having been without any sort of human interaction with regard to the sensual these past months, warmed to the idea. Fingers absently twisting the thin straps of her purse, she asked, "Where's the bathroom?" "Do you need to use the bathroom?" the man asked. "No. I need to get undressed." Ellery found her mouth speaking for her.